Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gail Carson, that's Gayle, Gail Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
You know, every once in a while, you're lucky enough to meet someone who really can have an impact on you. And I belong to this wonderful business networking group called Profit. And one of our members is Lillian Ser. And I'm interviewing her today because she is an absolutely fantastic woman. She's an entrepreneur, a trait that she shares with many of her clients, and she is a fantastic attorney. She started her own practice in 2009, Ser, S-E-R, Ser and Associates, a minority certified women-owned firm. Her education, which is, of course, an MBA and JD, coupled with her business and legal experience garnered over the years, prepared her for establishing her own firm and doing what she enjoys most, being closely involved in advising her clients on all legal aspects of their business and helping them grow. In addition to providing traditional hourly services, she created a program called My General Counsel to ensure that business owners could have regular access to quality legal services while not breaking their budgets. Lillian, it is an absolute honor and privilege to interview you today, and I'm looking forward to your wise and sage advice. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Carson. It's really my pleasure to be here, and I so much respect and look up to you that I was tickled when I heard from my assistant that you had called and are providing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you born in Miami? Tell us about your practice and what you like about being a small business owner.
I am actually a New Yorker by birth. My parents immigrated from Cuba in the late 1940s, and I was born and raised in New York until came down to Miami to go to the University of Miami, and I never left. So even though that I am pretty much a native now of Miami after being here for so many years, I still consider myself a New Yorker at heart. And I have been practicing now for about 21, 22 years. The law actually has been a second career for me. I worked at the University of Miami for some time. I was the bursar there. I ended up working there after I graduated my undergraduate in order to get my MBA on a part-time basis while I worked. And then I ended up staying on campus for quite some time and didn't go to law school until a little later in life. I was in my mid-30s when I started law school. And having that business background and the law degree really prepared me for assisting my clients. I actually, after law school, I ended up going to Big Law. I worked with Schutz & Bowen, which is a very large, prestigious Florida firm. And from there, I worked at Greenberg Traurig, which is a very large and also quite prestigious firm, which is an international firm, and really gained a lot of knowledge, and the training was just amazing. So all of these things prepared me for when I opened my own practice in 2009, which is in the middle of the Great Recession. It was not by choice. I was laid off. I was working in-house with a developer at the time. So I found myself on my own as a single parent and had no choice but to start my own law practice. But I am happy to say that now, 11 years later, business has been very good for me, and I have worked with such phenomenal small business clients, which is my target market, mom and pop, startups, and businesses that have been established pretty much 3 to 5 years is a sweet spot when I start working with the business, and then basically become part of their team. I've become integrated into their system and in all of their negotiations for new contracts, new businesses, and really try to concentrate our practice on the operations of that business and also help them grow, scale the business, and then eventually protect their assets through succession planning and trust and estate. So we offer a comprehensive approach to our legal services when working with small businesses. That's pretty much in a nutshell what we do here.
Well, you are very successful. I mean, I've been to your offices. I've met your staff. They are all very dedicated. They're all very enthusiastic, and they're all very, very accomplished. So you've done a magnificent job of building a firm around people who really are dedicated and care. So many people talk about attorneys and say, oh, all they're in for is a buck, but you are really in it to help your clients. So what is the biggest mistake that you see most small business owners make? I mean, there's got to be maybe some commonality there.
There certainly is, and it also depends on where they're at in the process. But the biggest mistake I think that small business owners make is that they don't hire the right professionals to assist them. And the top two are attorneys and accountants. And these are the two individuals that can help you ensure that you're protected and that the contracts that you're signing have sufficient protection for you. I understand from a business owner's perspective, sometimes you are trying to make that dollar stretch so far. I mean, you're paying for your maybe a lease or you're leasing space. You have employees. You have to pay for your utilities. I get that. However, sometimes small business owners will sign contracts in haste just to get the work or the client or the order, and they're signing things that can eventually get them into trouble and cost them so much more. And I've seen this time and time again when a small business owner signs a lease and the lease doesn't have the proper protections. A very simple example is a nail salon, for example, that will sign a lease in a shopping center without talking to the landlord and negotiating an exclusivity clause into that contract so that the landlord doesn't come in and plop down another nail salon in the same center. I mean, these are very simple things, and sometimes I think that these business owners are afraid to make waves with the landlord, with a vendor, with a client. But they're, landlords especially are used to this negotiation. And so it might cost a little bit of money up front, but in the long term, it's going to protect that client and it's going to protect that business. The same thing with a CPA. It is very important to make sure that your books are in order, to make sure that you're paying your employees correctly. A lot of small business owners get in trouble here. And again, yes, there is a cost to it, but in the long run, it's going to cost you so much less if you do it up front. So I think those are the biggest mistakes. And I'll throw another one out there is that, the business owner, when they're first starting out in a few years, is so concentrated on their day-to-day operations that they don't stop and think about what's going to happen in the future when I do need to move my operations to a larger warehouse, or do I want to buy a piece of property? And so establishing a relationship with a banker from the start. You want a banker to know about your business. You want them to know you, what kind of individual you are, so that 5 years down the line, when you do need a loan from that bank to scale your business, you have that relationship. So I think those are the three areas that all small business owners would benefit from paying for those services and for making those relationships up front.
I don't remember exactly when, but I do remember someone saying to me, make your contact with your banker before you need them and establish a relationship. And I guess that's really, really true, However, you mentioned something else too, and that is, the leasing. How did this last year, when people actually had to close and couldn't operate their business from their leased space, how did that affect your clients?
That was the most difficult part of the entire year for us. We worked so hard and so closely with our clients for the first 4 to 5 months of COVID in negotiating their leases. And the types of landlords ran the gamut from, we're not going to budge on rent, or yes, we will work with you to help you survive. I'm happy to say that not one of our clients lost their space, and that we were able to negotiate with the landlords either a reduced rate for a period of time or a rent abatement for 2 to 3 months. And so it all worked out, but you'd be surprised as to, there are some landlords out there that were just not willing to do anything for the tenant, and that was really quite unfortunate and quite sad. Our clients made it through happily, but it was rough, very, very rough year. We also had to do a lot of negotiations of existing purchase orders, vendor agreements, where there are certain minimums that had to be purchased or produced. And so again, it is finding that sweet spot on both sides, negotiating that agreement so that once we started to come out of this very difficult crisis, that the business could continue. So it's a matter of negotiation and finding that middle ground for both sides.
But having an attorney who can handle this for you, that is something that, it's just you can't compare that. That's a wonderful thing, and most people are afraid to contact their attorney because, first of all, they don't want any extra fees. That's number one, and then number two, they just figure, it's going to rankle the other side. But I agree with you. Everybody went through it, and as a former landlord, I'm glad I turned all of that stuff over to my son because he was really good at it. And there were people that didn't want to pay but weren't affected. For instance, we have a billboard company that has a billboard on one of our properties, and people were still driving by, but they didn't want to pay. But he negotiated it out, and and thank goodness I sent him to law school at the University of Miami, so that helped a great deal as well. But have you found anything specifically as a female head of a law firm that you didn't expect?
Well, I have been around for quite some time, so I grew up in an era where it was a little bit more difficult for women, I think, all around. And as an attorney, early on, basically it's a male-dominated field. And so you quickly have to grow some thick skin, I think. And you have to be able to go head-to-head with your counterparts, whether they're male or female. I think that a lot has changed since I first started practicing. It's certainly, I don't think it's as big of an issue, but still, there are some old timers that you still run into and will call you honey or sweetie or And it's a matter of keeping your cool when that happens. And I have a lot of clients that are women, and I actually really enjoy working with them. They are incredibly focused. They are much more organized, oftentimes, than their counterparts, very determined. I do think that overall, though, I think women tend to hold themselves back a little bit because of their fear of taking risks. And you see that in borrowing. And so oftentimes, in order to scale your business, you're going to have to borrow money to either, I don't know, buy that bigger warehouse or be able to hire a certain number of individuals to be able to increase your production. And so women tend to not want to borrow money. And that is the key. And I think it's still a big point of differentiation between men and women. It's that risk tolerance. But the women that I work with really don't seem to have that issue and have done very well.
Well, that's interesting because I always talk about the time when I started my business. Remember, that was 1959, and there were really no women in business, and I dealt 99% of the time with men. But I never found it an issue. And, I guess I did have people calling me honey or sweetheart or whatever, and I just ignored it. I just went on and did my thing because I thought, well, okay, that's all right. But, I do think that it's interesting you point out the risk factor because women do have so many of the other admirable qualities where if they did have a bigger risk tolerance, they would probably be able to get where they want to get a little bit further and faster. So I would say that makes a big difference too. So do you have a favorite kind of business that you deal with?
Well, again, my sweet spot for businesses is business that's 3 to 5 years old. That doesn't mean that we don't work with startups, but typically money is quite tight once a business starts up, and so we don't really come into the picture until about year 3 to 5, I'd say. And then at that point in time, the owner is starting to say, wait a second, I have all these contracts, or the worst thing is when we've seen this often is someone downloads a contract from the web and has been using that, and it's just a terrible contract. And I had clients who have agreed to jurisdictions in other states, Michigan or Jersey or wherever, where it's something it's because they downloaded and didn't read it or didn't understand it. So about that time, the business owner is starting to settle in and trying to have, a little bit more breathing room. And so that's typically when we go in, we do a full audit of the business. We look at all of their contracts, their employment agreements, what are their employment standards, do they have an employment workbook that they give their employees, are they paying their employees correctly? Do we need to trademark their name or their logo? That is very, very important these days, is being able to trademark. Especially if you have a really neat, fun name, you want to make sure to protect that. And people forget about that. And I have a client, for example, has a fantastic name, and he had been in business for a couple of years, and then we meet, and I asked him, hey, have you trademarked your name? It's such a fantastic one. And he says, no, but I really need to. And so we did it, and someone was already in with a similar name, and we have now been working for about 3 years to try to get him trademarked. And it's unfortunate because it really, some people are so imaginative. They come up with these fantastic names or logos or what do you call those, taglines, that really become the most valuable thing of their business at the end of the day. And you can, think about Coke or Pepsi or any product like that. The value is in that name, and which is a value that eventually you can use as when you're financing. So we talk about that. We talk about their future. For restaurants or other similar businesses, are they getting ready to franchise? We'll take you through the franchise process. Do you want to do government contracting? It's very lucrative. It's hard to get in, but once you're in, and so what we do with our clients is we assist them. We obtain all the minority certifications or small business enterprise certifications, and with that, they can start bidding on government work. And we do that both at the local level, state, and federal. And that's another way to scale their business. We also have a trust and estates attorney as part of the firm who will handle succession planning. We have a lot of family businesses that have not thought about, well, when mom or dad pass away or want to retire even, who's going to take this over? And how are we going to do this? And how are we protecting our assets? So we really try to look long range with the client. And then from a financial perspective, we, along with the client, will sit down, we'll decide, okay, what are we going to do first? How do you want to allocate your money for these services? Let's handle, the most crucial things up front, your contracts. Let's take a look at that. Let's talk about trademarking. Okay, franchising, yeah. Are you there yet? No, probably not. Let's wait a couple of years and let's start thinking about what you can be doing on your own right now to prepare you for that for later. So that's the kind of approach I like to take with clients so that we don't break the bank. I mean, at the end of the day, attorneys are expensive. I've worked with clients for years. We do payment plans. I try to come up with a way for them to be able to afford us so that I don't ever want to hear a client say, Lily, I didn't call you because I just couldn't afford it that month. That I don't want to ever hear. And so our clients then become quite loyal to us. And I have clients that I've had since I opened up shop in 2009. So that is a real privilege for me.
Well, it's interesting, a couple of things you said. And we're at the top of the hour, so we only have about, 3 minutes left, Lillian. But I did, I'm known as a spunky old broad, and I did trademark it. And in fact, I've renewed it now. I think once or twice because I trademarked it over 10 years ago. So that was a good idea. And then number two, it's so true that people don't think ahead as to where they're going. I did a few programs for the Family Institute at the University of Illinois at Champaign. And that was one of the big issues was what happens when mom and pop retire? Because a lot of times there's a couple of kids and who gets the nod as the head, and so there's no jealousy, and that's all got to be worked out ahead of time. And those are issues that are very, very deep that people don't think about when they first go into business because that's not where they're at and it's not what they're thinking about. But in the meantime, let's tell people how to get in touch with Ser and Associates.
Absolutely. You can reach us at 305-222-7282. Or you can email me at Lilly, Lilly, at ser-associates.com.
Fantastic. Well, this has been an absolute delight. And as you can tell, Lillian has a tremendous background and tremendous experience, and her firm deals with not only, the normal legal things, but, you heard her talk about trademarking, franchising, bank loans, leasing arrangements. I mean, they're so diversified, and yet it's a boutique firm, and they really take an interest in what you personally have to deal with on a fantastic time. So I want to thank you so much, Lillian, for being with us today. Hopefully people will learn not only from your experiences, but some of the things that you've talked about that they need to approach their own attorneys about that I'm sure they haven't thought about. So thank you so much for being with us today. And is there anything that we haven't said that you would like our audience to know?
No, just that I appreciate you and I appreciate the opportunity of chatting with you today. Again, I respect you so much and all you do for the business community and for women. So thank you, Dr. Carson.
Oh, you're so welcome, and thank you for being with us.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gailcarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.